Hey, welcome to another episode of geekoutdoors.com. Now, if you are not a Linux user and you have only been using Windows or Mac, a lot of times you're probably thinking that Linux is something that is very complex and that is really not made for the normal everyday user. But as Linux has shown, especially in the past, I would say decade, Linux has been becoming more and more easier to use and is definitely something that an everyday user can actually come into without being completely lost. But Linux is still built with geeks and nerds in mind. And so with that being said, I am going to be talking about some very simple Linux commands that people would probably use if they wanted to use the command line. And this is primarily for people who want to learn how to use the command line and for people who are not used to it. And so this isn't really an episode where I talk about everything that you can do on the command line because it is extremely powerful. Now, this is part of my making the move from Windows or Mac over to Linux series. So if you have not seen that, where I show you how to install VirtualBox and then install Linux Mint, be sure to check it out in the description area below. Now, before I go any further, I do want to say that I am not a command line super geek, okay? However, I have used command lines ever since the DOS days, okay, with Windows. And also, I even used that before that with my Commodore 64. And after that, I was actually, whenever I finished college, this is my first job. I was actually in corporate, and I know it looks kind of weird now for people who aren't old enough to remember, but these were pretty much state of the art, at least for an office. I had 2 CRT monitors, and we were all using Unix. And so this is Unix Solaris, and we also had HP UX machines. This is all server machines and IBM machines. And so I learned how to use command line here. And this is something that if any of you have ever worked with Unix, then you are very familiar with using the command line, and because Linux is based on Unix. Okay, so that was my exposure to the command line, so I definitely use it. However, I have not used it for the past few years, actually for a long time, since I was not in corporate anymore. And so I do have definitely some experience with command line, but like I said, I am not an expert with it, not anymore. And so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and go to my virtual machine, and I'm going to show you some very basic commands that if you are new to Linux, these are good things to learn. And so first and foremost, I just want to go over what I mean when I say command. Okay, so this is what I mean. This is a terminal. Okay, and if you have ever used DOS, you'd be familiar with it. But for the people who aren't, this is how basically things were done back in the day. Everything was command line driven, so you have to type everything. Okay, and so this is still the foundation of pretty much every operating system underneath it all. Okay, it's all command line based. Okay, so Linux is really heavily command line based if you are working in a server environment still, and so it's still a skill that's very, very useful. And for people who really know how to use command line, it's extremely powerful. And not to get into too much details, but for the majority of Linux distributions, the terminal, which is what this is, or console, they use bash. Okay, and that is basically the environment for this command line interface. Okay, so with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this. So I'm going to show you some real basic commands, and at the same time, I'm going to show you how that relates to your GUI window right here. Okay, so the very first command that you want to know is actually this one right here. This is pwd. This is your actual directory that you're in right now, which is the working directory. Okay, so anytime you want to know where you're at, you type in pwd. And whenever you are open up the terminal, then this is usually the default directory that you're in. This is your working directory. This is actually your home directory right here, and then your user account, which is right here. Okay, so if you had multiple user accounts under the same home directory, then obviously you would be in that specific directory, so that you can see how this works from the GUI to the command line. Okay, so the next command is ls, which is a list command. Okay, so if you type in ls, this will show all the directories or files in the location that you're at right now. Now with the ls command, you can also control how things are displayed. So in this case, it just shows everything like this, but if you wanted more details, you could also do this, ls-l, and now it'll actually show you more details of the directory or the files. In this case, all the permissions and the dates on which they were created as well or modified. So that is important. And if you wanted to see every single file in this working directory that you're at, including hidden files, you would do ls-a. Okay, and if you don't know what hidden files are, let me show you here. You could do a shortcut. You could do Control H, or you could go View, and then you could do Show Hidden Files. See? So these are all hidden files. So these are hidden files and directories that normally you don't have to see, but they're there. Okay, so I'm gonna get out of that right there. So that way you saw that these do actually exist, and you could see them right through the command line. Okay, and you can also control how things are listed. Like if I went back here and I did ls-l and then a, so now it'll show you this detailed list, but at the same time it'll also show all the hidden files as well. So that's a very useful command because you actually want to know where you're at sometimes, especially if you are using everything through command line. Okay, now the next command that is very important is cd, which means change directory. So in this case, if I'm looking at my directories, I say, well, I want to go into my downloads folder. Okay, you could do cd and then type in downloads. Okay, and then press enter, and see, it'll go directly into this directory, and you could type in ls, and now you're inside this directory. But the cd command is more powerful than that. You could actually have different commands you could put there. So if you wanted to go back to directory directly above you, you could do cd ... and now you have gone up to the directory above you. Okay, or if you wanted to go to the last directory that you were just at, you could do cd dash, and see, now to go back to whatever last directory you're at. Or in some cases, well, you don't want to type in everything, right? You could either do this, where it's cd and then start typing it in, and then you could press tab, and that'll finish that. That's easy. Or if you wanted to, you could do like a cd and then put in a star, and that's like a wildcard, and it'll go into that directory. Now, of course, if the beginning of your directory has the same characters, it won't know which one you want to go into, so that's not a problem. But usually the tab function, that's an easy way to do it as well. And also, say like you're within this directory and you want to go back to your main top directory, which is your home directory, right? All you do is do C, and then I can't remember the name of this mark, but that'll bring you back to the actual home directory, and that's where you're at right now. That's the tilde symbol. That's what that is. So that is cd. Okay, now you might want to actually create folders here. Okay, so a lot of people definitely want to create folders, and so the command for that is mkdir. So I'm gonna, that which stands for make directory. So let me go ahead and create this. I'm gonna call it test, and now if you see on my GUI, there it is, there's test. Okay, so if you do ls, then you see the directory there, just like you do in the GUI. And you could also, make multiple directories as well all at once. So if I did this, 2, 3, so now, it's created more directories really quickly. And so as you could clearly see here, you could do a lot of things a lot quicker with the command line if you know what you're doing. Okay, that's a lot easier than going in and create a folder. Here you could create multiple directories all at once. Okay, so now you know how to look at where you're at, you know how to change directories, and you know how to make directories. Now let's look at files. How do you create files? How do you manipulate files? And so let's go ahead and go into this folder right here. I think I put some files already here. So okay, so I have that file there. I already have 2 files, but let me go ahead and make a new file. So the command for that is touch. I know that sounds weird for it to have that name, but one. And with Linux, it's not really extension heavy as it is in Windows. You know, like Windows, you have to have some type of extension, you know, like a .jpeg, .txt, and so forth. But in Linux, you don't have to. But you want to know what file type you have. So there it is. So I created this file, test1. And so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add some dummy text. So I'm going to do this through the GUI. I can do it through command line, but I want to make this as simple as possible. So as you see here, that file has been created. And obviously it's empty. So let me type in just some random information. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. Let me close it. So say that you want to see the contents of that particular file. You know, now you know how to create the file with touch. You can also view the contents of it using a command called cat, which stands for concatenation. So you can do cat and then the name of the file, and there it is. It'll show the contents. Now this works just fine when you have very little data in that text file. But if you had something really long like this other file, test2, let me show you. That's a lot of stuff, okay? So let me show you how that would work if I did cat. Oops, right here. And see, that's really long, and you know, you have to scroll all the way up and stuff. And so this might not be ideal if you're looking at a lot of information. So you can also do another command where you could see less information, and I'm going to go over that next. But the one thing that you could do with cat is you can combine two files together. And what it did there was it actually combined both files together. We could see everything at once. You know, but as I mentioned a little bit earlier, this isn't really ideal. I mean, you could obviously expand this if you want, but say you only wanted to see, you know, like a page at a time, okay? So that is primarily the cat command, but you could do many other things with it. But moving forward, if you just wanted to see not everything displayed all at once, you could use a command called less. So if you go less, and you remember that test2 is pretty long file, so and now see, you could page. See, there's like a page feature. You just press space and it'll page down slowly but surely. And when it ends, you just press Q and that'll quit the file. And so that's a lot easier if you were looking at a lot of data in a file or multiple files, you know. So sticking with the theme of file, so you see here that we have a text file and a JPEG, you know, but as I said earlier, in Linux, extensions are something that you add manually, and it's not something that Linux requires. But if you want to see the actual file type of a file, because you could put any extension, but you know, it doesn't mean that's actually that file type that you're thinking of. You could always use the command called file. So in this case, if I did that, you see, it'll tell you exactly the file type, you know, regardless of the extension. This is ASCII text. And here, I have an image, a JPEG image. So if I did the same thing here, so it tells you this is actually a JPEG image. So that way, no matter what, you could know exactly the file type that you are working with, regardless of the extension that is put on there. And so that is very, very helpful. Okay. So now we're going to go to the copy command. Copy command is CP. Okay, so say for example, I wanted to copy this frog file. Okay, so and I just press tab right there, and then I want to name it frog3 or frog2.jpg. Okay, okay, and there it is. It created it, and I could open it, and it works. Okay. And so that is very helpful. So what if you wanted to copy this file over to a different directory? So here you could do the same thing. In this case, okay, and then you can actually make it a little more complex. So here I'm going to go to the directory above me, okay, and I'm going to put it in test. Then here And I could make it the same file name, or I could name it something else. So you want to make it the same file name, you could do like this. Okay, so if I go here to test, see, there it's the same exact file name. Okay, however, what if I wanted to do the same thing again? And I'll show you a different command later where you don't have to type in the same stuff over and over. Okay, so here I'm just gonna, you could also do a highlight where you could copy and paste. Okay, so copy, paste. Now here I wanted to name it something different. Okay, so I wanted to name it frog, let's just say frog3, frog3.jpg. And see, there it is, it created it. So that is really, really cool. And you know, like I said, if you get really good with the command line, you could do a lot of powerful things. Okay, so the next command we want to learn is the remove command. Okay, this is basically the delete command. And so let's go back to test. And I'm really used to just typing everything out, and so if I don't use the shortcuts, that's why. And so for example, say I wanted to remove this file right here, and I'm gonna make copies of this file so we'll have multiple files. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. So, and then let's name it. Okay, so if you just want to remove a single file, you could do rm and then the name of the file. So let's remove this one. Oops, I learned how to spell. So see, it just deleted that. Okay, now if you also wanted to remove a complete directory and all the files within it, there's another command that you can do as well. So okay, so if I try to do just a rm test, okay, so you can't do that with just the remove command. So if I did a rm -r, which is recursive, and then I type in the name of the directory, and let me open it up here. Okay, then you press enter. See, it completely removed the directory and everything in there. Okay, but you do have other options. You know, you could also do rm -dr test2, and that'll work as well. Okay, and so that is basically the remove directory command and remove commands. And so it could be pretty powerful, but it can also be kind of dangerous if you're not sure what you're doing. So you know, one of the things that you can do is you could actually have what's called a, let me copy some stuff here. And so I know I'm going back and forth between a GUI and the command line, but sometimes it's a little easier for certain things. Like, so let me show you something on this test3 directory. Okay, so you can also do this as well. If you wanted to confirm that you wanted to remove this, you could do this command first. Okay, and what it will do is whenever you put a -i, it will confirm whether or not you want to do this first before you actually do it. If it's yes, press Y, and there, delete it. So that way you could be on the safe side, and you could use this same -i command when you're doing a copy as well. Okay, and so that is really good to have, you know, especially since the command line is so powerful. You could actually do a ton of damage. Now you can also use another command called move, okay, which is mv. Okay, so say for example I wanted to move this actual file somewhere else. Okay, so let me go ahead and make a directory within this directory. Okay, so now I have another directory there. So say I want to move this file over to this directory right here. So you need to put dot, which is the current directory, and then I'm gonna call it frog3.jpg. Okay, and so I moved it there, but I also renamed it at the same time. So that's a pretty powerful command. You know, once again, like all of these, they're very, very powerful. Okay, so the next command that you'd probably want to use is the clear command. And so say you had a whole bunch of stuff on the screen, right? Like right here, I have quite a bunch of stuff, like especially if I'm doing something like that, right? And man, your screen gets really messy. Okay, so what you can do is you could use this command called clear, and it'll basically clear everything on the screen. Very simple, but also very nice to have as well. And so now, like it sometimes can be real like cumbersome for you to type in the same stuff over and over. So, especially if you wanted to execute the same commands that you did before. So how would you do that? Well, you could do that by typing in history, and see here you could see all the commands that you've typed in before. Okay, and if you wanted to execute an older one, you could just press up right here or down. See, and it'll just scroll through all the commands. So this makes it really easy if you had commands that you wanted to use from earlier. Okay, so it makes it really easy to use that. And so say for example you're not really clear on what a command does and what options are available. Okay, well, one thing you could do is use the man command, which stands for manual. And so like for example, if you do man ls, see, it'll actually tell you everything about this command and also the options available as well, which is really nice, especially since there's so many commands available. Okay, and also say if you didn't know what a command does, you just simply wanted to know in general what it is, you could just type in what is and then the name of the command, and it'll tell you exactly what it does. Okay, now you could also use a help command as well. So if I do this and then like that, see, it'll show everything there. But normally I'll just use man, that's usually easier for me to use. And that is pretty much it today. These are like the main basic commands that you would probably use on a regular basis if you did decide to use the command line interface. The command line is extremely powerful, and if you use it a lot, especially if you decided you want to get into the whole server side world of Linux, then these are things that you're going to be using every single day, and it's extremely powerful. The last command is exit, which is self-explanatory. You could always close the window, but that is the quote-unquote proper way to exit out of your Linux terminal. So if you had any thoughts on the Linux command lines, these are basic commands, leave them in the comments area below. And if you want to support my channel further, you could do that at patreon.com/geekoutdoors. All that information is in the description area. Thanks for watching. See you in another episode. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com. And I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.